Hey everybody, this is Nick with ToolBoxTalkUSA. I really couldn't have come up with a better name than that, I guess. A little bit about myself. I'm kind of young. I'm 22, about to be 23, and I graduated early from high school. And by early, I mean it was like by a year at the most, or half a year at the least. Um, and immediately after that, when I was 17, I moved out to a different state and attended a trade school. And the trade school, some of you guys might know, it's UTI, or Universal Technical Institute. And what they do there is they pretty much get you introduced to the cars, the big trucks, you know, the 18 wheelers, as some people call them. And I found myself not really being all that into it towards the end of my time, but I was lucky enough that I was able to land a job working on these things called reefers, which some people, well, actually most people don't know. Reefers are basically big refrigerators that they put on the front of these trailers, so that way when people haul around food, there's not a big, the stuff stays cool, and they allow people to transport food from one side of the country to the other, and that's where I actually found my calling. I found that not many people know about them, not many people want to work on them, and I found it's a nice job to have with a good steady line of work depending on what area you're working out of. I mean, luckily for me, I was down in Phoenix where it gets to be 120 degrees, and things definitely need to try and stay cool. I mean, you could have ice cream melt in half a day, or half a day. You could have it melt in half a minute in 120 degree weather. I think anybody would agree with that. But basically, like I said, they're the big refrigerators. If you ever see just a big 18-wheel trailer and it's just flat on the front of it, that's just what they call a dry van or a dry box. I worked on the ones where there's a big bubble on the front of them, and those are what reefers are. Um, I really did enjoy finding myself being a part of that. I found that there is just a decline of people that are wanting to pursue this, and it's not in fault for anybody else. Most people only know that they want to work on the trucks. Most people only want to work on the trailers. Most people only want to work on cars. But I'm having a problem, and I see it. Maybe it's just only out here on the West Coast, but I only see this problem that nobody wants to do it. Nobody knows about them. There's not a big PR campaign trying to promote this idea, and I find that's probably one of the biggest driving reasons why I still do what I do. I mean, I could go be an IT guy, or I could be pretty much anything I want to be. I could be flipping burgers or try and move my way up into a management position, but it's a sense of satisfaction. You know, someone comes in and says my damn thing doesn't work, and I enjoy fixing it, getting it back to them. And especially at my last job, where it was 99% of the people there only worked on the big trucks. Now, why was that? Well, it's because they looked at these reefers and they start scratching their head, and they look at it like it's voodoo and like it's magic. And even being 22, I got a sense of accomplishment from everybody. Everybody looked at me like I was some sort of a hero because I knew how to work on these things. And the reality was, I look at them like the real heroes. The reefers don't do anything if the trucks aren't rolling down the street. If they're not going across the country, then everybody's screwed. Now, I really just wanted to. This is obviously just an overlay of Shadow of War. It's because I'm not a pretty face, and I have no idea what else to make a video about. I am just a novice getting into this. I bought a little webcam. I've got my headset and spare time right now while I'm in transition between jobs. But I guess the main topic I want to drive home today is that there's a decline in the value of hard work. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that changing oil on your guys' cars, most of those technicians only get paid minimum wage. Changing your tires, changing a light bulb, they get paid minimum wage. Now, that's not to say that it's not easy work. It was easy once you know it, but not many people know how to do it, and that's where I find is the problem there. I mean, you can buy a plunger and be a plumber if you wanted to. You might not be able to be the smartest plumber, but you can still do it. The problem I have is that in order to even start with these jobs, you have to have tools. Most companies won't provide you with a basic set of tools, and I mean most, like 99% of these companies don't give you a set of hand tools to do your job. And that's a real problem, because I can't think of many industries where you have to have your own tools to do the job to make your own money. And again, I think there's a decline in the value of the hard work that the men and women that do fix cars, trucks, trailers, reefers. Now, I mean, why is that? It just seems to be that over the years we've all heard the horror stories about how there was some hack job that messed your car up, and then you had to go to the dealer, and the dealer was being shady. And I'd like to think that everybody's cleaned up since then. I know I certainly have always valued myself to look at it like, if it was my own car, would I want to mess up my own car? Would I want to mess up my own trailer? And I always looked at it like, if I was going to have to pay for it if I messed up. And to drive it home, I mean, I'm going to at least dive into the technical side of it. When I was working at my first job working on these reefers, I had to do what's called after hours or on-call services. So in the middle of the night, 1 a.m. to whatever time some guy has a problem, they call and I'm expected to show up. Middle of the night, drop what I'm doing, or sleeping most of the time, go down, try and fix somebody's problem. And the value of some of these loads that they have in the back of these refrigerated trailers. I remember one time somebody had $1 million worth of cherries or chocolate or ice cream. Yet for my time showing up there, I only got paid time and a half for maybe a couple hours. Now that doesn't seem right if you look at it. It doesn't seem right. And why are these big companies requiring mechanics to buy their own tools to do the jobs for these companies, yet they can't be properly compensated for it? Now, I get it's a tough industry. Not everything's breaking all the time. You have to be really busy in order to make your money. I can understand that. And I understand that I am the one accepting a paycheck. But what I don't understand is just this undervalued mechanic. And in particular, because I've only ever worked out in the desert, it's brutal. In the winters, it might not be minus 30, but just getting down to those 30 degrees, your hands are just completely useless. You touch one thing the wrong way, and it just hurts for days and days and days. You're just tired of being cold. You want to be back in the heat, but then when the heat comes around in the summer, it gets to the 110s, the triple digits, the 120s. And now you are sweating profusely on the verge of passing out, but you still need to do the same job, working around these very, very hot engines, burning yourself constantly. I mean, I had to play with a torch all the time to do my job. In fact, I have been burned on the side of my leg one time. That was my own stupidity, but it was with a cutting torch. I cut something off and wasn't paying attention and accidentally put it out on my leg. Now, I can tell you, that was on a Tuesday. I still came in for after hours work, and my shift for the week didn't end until Saturday. I still had to do what I had to do because I had bills to pay. Now, I know what some of you are saying, well, you should have reported to the HR or anything like that. Well, I guess for a little bit more background history, the whole time while I was doing it, I was an idiot because I was a younger kid, and I was smoking weed. Now, if anybody working in a decent job knows, you will get drug tested, and if you tested positive, you're probably going to get fired, get laid off, whatever the term you want to use. So it's a no-win situation. So I had to literally man up, take care of myself, clean my own wounds. I didn't want to go get it checked out. It's thank God I never got that infected. I did a great job of taking care of my own wounds. Another example is I had my shirt catch on fire too, and the clothing you wear that these companies provide when they catch fire, it doesn't just catch fire. It like melts into this black tar. And this black tar, the only reason I knew that I was on fire was because I reached my left hand back and said, "Boy, it's a little toasty outside today." And when I pulled my hand back, I just saw this black tar over my hand, and since I had put my leg out, I knew immediately to hit the deck, drop and roll. And of course there was the HR lady. I told her, "No, it's fine, it's fine. It just was an accident." And I had to go upstairs with probably between second and third degree burns just from the melting tar, and under some cold water I had to, with my fingernail, scrape off this tar off of each one of my fingers on my hand. And I can tell you that was probably the worst experience that I've had, because it wasn't, again, this was on like a Tuesday, and I still had to work through that Saturday too. So I had to run it under cold water, scrape it off with my fingernails, and then proceeded for the next 2 weeks to have blisters that were just god awful, these burns on my hand. And of course the girlfriend just kept forgetting, because she is the girlfriend, she wants to hold my hand, and I can't tell you how many times she would just go to reach for my hand and just absolutely hurt me. Looking back, it was still kind of a funny situation. I was an idiot. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. But bringing it back to the value of hard work, I know many a guy, black, brown, Asian, white, you name it. I know many a guy that has been through the same experience. They're the real men of this world. I mean, you look at an office job, someone gets a paper cut, they gotta go get a band-aid right away. I've seen plenty of mechanics damn near lop a finger off, including myself, and we just wrap tape around it and carry about our business, unless we're profusely bleeding everywhere. Need box cutters, razor blades. I actually almost had a nail go through my foot. It went straight through my boot and just poked the bottom of my foot, and luckily I didn't get tetanus or nothing like that. I think I was up to date on my shots. But I think driving home the point would be the question, why? Why are these people being undervalued, underpaid? I mean, it seems that if you're not the master mechanic, you're not making any sort of big bucks, and even then, in order to be the master mechanic, you have to have certifications that you yourself pay for, and if you're lucky, the dealership will pay for it. You have to provide all your own tools besides certain big items that shops themselves will pay for. And I mean, personally, I'm in $10,000-$13,000 worth of debt for tools to do a job where I'll make, if you're lucky, $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a year on average. That's about what a normal mechanic makes. And I find that completely messed up. Why is that the case? If you told the guy starting in the IT department that he had to bring his own server, he wouldn't do it. If you told the McDonald's employee that they had to go out and go buy their own headset in order to manage the drive-thru, or they had to bring their own cash register, they wouldn't do it. So why is it that the mechanic industry, we have to pay for our tools to make our money, to support our lives, to go back to work the next day and just keep rinse and repeat? Now, I was blessed. I was offered a good job where I was ended up making $30 an hour, which was more respectable about what the work I was doing. I felt proud of doing the work I was doing. Again, I was working on the reefers. But not every place is like that. Not everybody has that opportunity, and even then, I mean, I still felt that I was just paycheck to paycheck mostly, spending god-awful amounts of money over a year just to try and take down the balance of your tools. I mean, hell, a good-sized toolbox to fit everything costs you about $5,000. Unless you want to cheap out, go buy a Harbor Freight one, and that'll still cost you about $1,500. But that doesn't make much sense to me. And then another reason why I bring this whole topic up, especially when I hear about the McDonald's employees or teachers or something like that saying that they're getting underpaid. Now, the teachers, I would say, have a more important role in society, but they're not really teaching. as far as I can tell. I remember plenty of times where I had to be the student teacher, where my classmates just didn't understand it, and I had to explain it clearer to them before they finally got it. Hell, I helped 3 people get through high school because they didn't know algebra. I just ended up taking their test for them and swapping the papers back with them whenever the teacher wasn't looking. I was that kid. So if you recognize my voice, you recognize the name. You guys are welcome. I hope you guys are professionals making millions, and I would like to receive a check sometime. Just saying. But like, your teachers, you don't have to. For some people, I mean, some teachers are really, really good. They have to go buy their own supplies for the classroom or whatnot, and they actually do have a strive and a motive. And I agree. Those teachers should be rewarded because they are being good teachers. But with the whole teachers union, I have a problem that they're kicking away the best teachers that could actually provide to society because they were the latest person to be hired, and that means they're the first person to be fired. Meanwhile, you have grumpy old insert awful name here who just yells at the students, just tells them to copy notes out of a book, and doesn't actually teach anything. Yet they are demanding more money. They're not fired for poor performance because of the teachers' unions. And then the teachers' unions constantly go on strike for these ridiculous reasons. And I made this argument with my girlfriend and my brother, and we actually went arguing for a good minute as to why I believe this, but I remember in Arizona they were fighting to get a better wage, the teachers union. They were all on strike, and they were fighting to get a higher wage overall across the board. At the same time, they were arguing because McDonald's employees were going to receive more money, or they were arguing for more money. They wanted a higher minimum wage for McDonald's employees. Now, here's the problem I see, and I'm not an economics professor. I didn't take any sort of economics class, but I've just handled my money pretty damn good. And what I see is that, okay, McDonald's employee minimum wage, let's say it's $8 an hour, they want $15 an hour because they quote-unquote want a living wage. Well, McDonald's was never supposed to be a living wage kind of a company. They were originally started as just, well, not originally started, they were always known as being the entry-level job, just so you can get some experience, hire the high school kid, and teach him the phrase, "Would you like fries with that?" and then send him a little bit of money every couple weeks. But what happens is if you give those people $15 an hour, then you have people like the teachers union saying, well, why are they getting paid this much whenever I'm actually doing something more important? I'm teaching the future how to say, would you like fries with that? I'm teaching the next generation. And so they demand more money. And I see it as just a climbing hill where the next line up, let's say the plumbers all of a sudden say, oh, well, we want more money. Steel workers, electricians, I mean, mechanics. I'm surprised that the only reason most places have what's called a shift bid, where you get to try and fight for your own schedule in the job, is to try and keep people from unionizing, because if they do that, they know that the unions are going to run them bankrupt. And so I just see a never-ending effect of people just going to want to ask for more and more and more because they're doing more than the last guy, which in turn will raise prices around the area because they're going to have to pay their workers more. It means their product prices are going to go up. And if the product prices go up, then it's eventually going to come full circle. And those same McDonald's employees that wanted $15 an hour because it wasn't a quote-unquote living wage will now find themselves with more expensive products on the line. And it still won't be enough to cover everything. I'm in firm belief, and I don't remember exactly where I heard this, but I'm in firm belief that there should be no such thing as a minimum wage. You used to have to go in and negotiate how much you wanted to get paid with your boss for your time, your talent, your abilities, and for what you thought you could bring to the company. But this idea of making a minimum wage, I mean, ask most small business owners, if they increase the minimum wage, what happens? Well, look at Walmart, look at McDonald's again. They don't employ full-time now. Why? Because there was a mandate that if they work this many hours, they have to provide health care. Well, what's the way around that? Well, you just start cutting hours and hiring more people. Well, then they said, well, if you have this many people, you have to provide them with health care. So they said, okay, so we're just going to cut hours and cut people. So now you're just burdening the whole system. I mean, business owners are generally smart enough to realize the problems here. This is just, I wouldn't say economics 101, but I would say it's just a decent assumption of what is going to happen if you just try to coerce people into doing what they don't want to do. Now, I'm not a business owner myself, but I have some business experience with the numbers and whatnot. And to bring it back to the value of hard workers, again, I ask, if the McDonald's employees are fighting for $15 an hour, the teachers are fighting for a better wage, what does that say to the real hard workers? I'm not saying it's not work. I'm saying hard workers. The lumberjacks, the plumbers, the mechanics, the electricians, the roofers, for God's sakes, gardeners, landscapers. Why is nobody else talking about this? Why is there no campaign for the hard work? Instead, they just shove it off as saying, oh, they're all just shady. Oh, they're all just bad. And employers get away with this. Now, I'm not saying every industry needs to have their wages increased, but I do think that they need to start recognizing this. I think that's probably the most important thing to me. It's the lack of recognition. Now, there is entry-level jobs in the mechanic field, landscaping field, roofing business, construction business, etc. But at a certain point, you have to come to realize that that is still harder labor than being a cash register attendant, selling clothes at a Tilly's. That's my struggle with it. Is that it's mostly with this new push for socialism, this new SJW culture, this PC culture, is that everybody starts forgetting about what capitalism really was. Capitalism is and will always be the greatest thing that could have happened to the history of the world. It gave rise to the strongest and most freest nation in the world. And I'm with Dennis Prager from Prager University. I'm with him when he says that capitalism guarantees equal opportunity, but not equal outcome. The United States gives everybody the equal opportunity to succeed, or stay stable, or fail. But what the United States does not do is guarantee equal outcome. And that's just, I can't find anything that should argue against that. I have not found one other point of view that says that we should just go ahead and give everybody a universal basic income, which I believe is retarded. I can't find one counter argument that says that capitalism really is evil, that we'd be better off with socialized everything. And here's the thing too, we've proven socialism doesn't work. So why would we try and do it again, especially in light? I've been on the nose here with just the news coming in every single day. These 2020 candidates on the Democrat side just pushing for universal health care, college, and fucking free whatever, you name it. Where are they going to get that money from? They say tax the rich. Well, if the rich are already rich, they'll leave. They'll just leave the country, or they have always found a way to get their money offshores to where they won't be taxed, or they go to a different state, or the next country over and still operate in the same business. So what socialism does is take everybody's money and then tries to give it back to everybody, while in the meantime the people at the top dictating who gets what gets the most money. Case in point, look at Venezuela. They are taking literally everything from everyone else, and it seems that the generals and Nicolas Maduro is the only people that look to be wealthy in that country. I mean, what the hell happened? I mean, I can tell you what happened. Socialism happened. If they had stayed a capitalist society, a capitalism society, they could have still been doing fine. They could be well off. They could be the leader of the South American world. but instead they crumbled. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Maybe I'll come back in with a second chat log, or I don't know. Maybe I can find some other points here. Oh, no, I did want to touch on the the free college. God, has that been such a big mistake, and yet no one seems to realize it on the left side of things. When Bernie Sanders and the rest of them say that we should have free education, including K through 12 and higher education, my point to them was that it doesn't need to be free, it can just be reduced. How do you get it reduced? Well, you start privatizing the loans and take federal spending away from these colleges. The only reason college tuition has gone up is because we keep giving these colleges more money. And they do just like what the military does. They get a budget, and then they spend the budget, so that way next year they can say, oh, well, we need more money because we went through it all. And so the federal government just complies with that, and that part is just killing me. I mean, to take my 2-year course for automotive and diesel, it's $30,000. Do I think I got $30,000 worth of education out of it? Hell no. What it gave me was an open door to start looking around and let me put a little pretty name on my resume, so that way hopefully people could like it. But what's funny about UTIs, whenever I looked around the area, everybody knew the acronym. It wasn't Universal Technical Institute. No, UTI stood for Untrained Idiots. What does that tell you? Tells you I could have been better off going to a community college for, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000, learning the basics, because UTI has become all online and then barely anything hands-on to teach you. So again, I ask, why would we want to make it free for everybody? Why would I want to give the federal government more money out of our tax dollars to give to these same universities, these colleges, who are just going to ask for more money every single time, every single year, of every single day? That is what a business does. They want to grow. If they are in the business of Uncle Sam, then they're going to keep asking for more money, and that's just hard. It's just hard for some people to grasp and understand this. What I would say is, if I'm not president, I don't exactly know how it would work, but I'd be right there in Congress voting for less spending. I'd give a cutoff date. Okay, everybody in the U.S., you have 3 years to get your last federal loan for these colleges, and we're going to end it. After that, everybody pays off their dues. Maybe there's some sort of not reimbursement, but student loan forgiveness. Maybe there's some form of that. But we should end it. It's the same thing when we should end, the welfare state. It's just eating at our debt. And everybody says, oh, how do we do it? Well, stop giving, or, the student loan debt, if I remember right, the statistic is that it's the second highest form of debt in the U.S. next to mortgages. Okay. And I've just clearly laid out an example of how the hell we can get rid of the second highest debt problem in the U.S. I mean, mortgages are mortgages. I think a home is way more valuable than your degree in liberal arts studies. I think that's retarded. I think universities and colleges aren't giving new students the right information. And I think these parents are even worse. Why would you let your kid go into this much debt to learn nothing of value? I can't tell you how many people I met that, oh, I'm a photography major. Everybody has a phone nowadays with a camera built in. And if you don't, I'm sorry, but 99%, or maybe not 99, let's call it a vast majority of the U.S., everybody has some form of a phone, whether it's a smartphone, flip phone, a fucking old Nokia that they still have, but it still had a camera on it. And if your whole point is to be better at cameras, then I think you're wasting your time, or I damn well don't think you need to go 4 semesters $20,000 per semester. That's just stupid. Now, doctors on a different story, or is a completely different story. Doctors, yes, doctors and nurses. That's going to cost a lot. You have to have actual professionals take their time away and teach people how to be better doctors or teach people how to be a doctor. I would agree with that. I don't know how to be a doctor. I like to spitball some ideas and I'll WebMD something until it tells me I have cancer, and then I go actually seek a professional. Just like many people do. Or at least many people I know. I don't know. There's real problems. I would, at least touching back on the politics side of things, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'd like to consider myself somewhere between center and conservative. I just don't think that government is going to solve a damn thing. We've seen when it's done. Lyndon Johnson created the welfare program, and look how that's turned out for the community. The Affordable Care Act did more damage than it did good. It robbed people of their choice and made everybody pay more for their insurances that they didn't want, and more people lost their insurance than people gained health care. I mean, affirmative action, that's another good one. Telling qualified students they can't go to their qualified school because they want to have Billy just get into a college. And that's just wrong. I mean, that's robbery at gunpoint almost. You're taking the opportunity away from somebody who could be, the guy figuring out cancer because he's actually really smart, and you're giving it to this poor kid that didn't learn a thing in high school, didn't even really want to go to Yale or whatever, maybe would have just been happy with a community college, but no. Affirmative action said, no, we need to get these people in here. And so now you're sticking these kids that are just underqualified to even take the courses that are offered there, and you stick them with tens of thousands of dollars of debt. That is borderline robbery. And at the very least, it's immoral. I mean, anybody with a half a brain could probably figure that one out. I beat myself up that I even attended the school, because to be honest, I could have just gone to a community college and just been working on cars, and maybe I'd never be at this point where I'm ranting about this, but I think that's it for me. I might just leave the rest of the video up and edit some music overlays. If you liked the rant, leave me a comment. Subscribe if you like it. I always like the likes. Dislike it if you don't like it. It is what it is. I'll take any sort of feedback, good or bad. And thank you.